Okay, this is a Fluke 343a, and to replace the Sprague capacitors, I did my first design for these replacements. So one thing that does not work is putting the cap on first, because it blocks the hole to get through to the board. So on the forums it was asked if you could use headers, and I think headers will work, so we're going to do one with headers. Now, if I were going to use headers from the beginning, I would have made the holes smaller, because the mounting holes are 1.2 millimeter and they should be 1 millimeter. So I can update that file and put it up online. I'm going to do that for every single one of these, but this one might stay and it might not. One thing is that you have this extra large tab, and the other tabs are, you know, they're quite a bit wider than the headers. So that's why I wanted to use this 18 gauge solid core copper, because it you know, it does fit pretty good. But now I'm realizing that even the copper, I always kind of want tolerance, but for these, really, if the holes were 1 millimeter, the copper would be a super tight fit, and you could just kind of jam it in there, solder it, and it's good to go. Now, how can I solder these with it being this side up? Well, since I have 20 spacers to play with, well, they turned out fairly straight to a test fit. It's pretty level. The problem was it was pushing up against my ESD mat. So headers do work. So you see that gaping hole there, which is fine. There's nothing attached to it. We'll just fill that in or not fill it in. It's not really necessary. I do have a whole bag of these, but I'm going to use this reclaim on one that I realized that I should have soldered all the leads in first. So that's a problem right there. It does kind of leave an angle, so I'm going to cut this shorter. Now the solution would be to offset the cap towards the edge of the board, and that way you'd be away from that. But, you know, uniformity, I want this in the center. And you really don't need any thermal relief on this thing. It's so small. So here's one with header pins, and they're pretty, they're pretty solid. These are either gold or brass. I think headers are usually brass plated. And there it will live. Now for this, got some foam to hold it in. Just going to solder this back one. Now the holes are much larger than the 2.5 what is that, 2.4, or the 100 thousandths of that pin. But these are nice solid pins. I would prefer the copper. The copper is a little bit thicker. Now, is that level enough for me? Yeah, that's level enough for me. So I'm going to go ahead and finish soldering those pins in. Now do I fill in the giant hole? Yeah, I better fill that hole in. The only problem is it's like a ring. All it is a ring that doesn't go through the board. So it's going to take a heck of a lot of solder. That's attached to it. It's not full 360. It's like about 12 to 15%. That's good enough for me. That hole is just too big. There's just no way around it. So, mission accomplished. I have one brand new Japanese capacitor in there. So, alright, for my 18 gauge copper idea for the leads, I've decided I'm going to try flipping the PCB upside down, just letting some copper hang out, solder it in, so it sits pretty flat that way. It's all the way through. I might touch up the top. I'm going to try to use less solder though for that ball. Let's try this again. Use less solder. Yeah, with this being a long length of copper, I can just kind of adjust it. And again, flat, so I'm actually happy with that. Let it cool. Cut it. So that, I think, is easier than using the headers. But the header way is fine, there's nothing wrong with it. But the benefit about soldering the copper wire upside down is this is now a flat surface. So we'll put a capacitor in here. It sits down flat. So, should I touch up the copper on here? No, that's fully wetted. There's no reason to add more solder. So this is exciting, because I actually really wanted to use the copper. Don't melt through the hole. Yep, the other copper didn't even move right next to that pin. So oh, this is great. Cut the leads on the cap. You know, depending on how flat you cut it is, you know, how flat this thing's going to sit. But here is just copper. And again, there's no traces. On the PCB. And even if the copper pins aren't straight, it's super flexible, so I'm just going to kind of wiggle it around. You know, if the copper pins aren't straight, it actually gives you some force as I'm wiggling this around. It's kind of stiff. Because what I was going to use was got these neoprene sticky pads. I'm going to cut this little size in half and stick them underneath, but honestly I don't think I need to. So I'm going to adjust it to where it looks good. Now if I can get in there, you can see there's a decent gap. Nothing's, you know, this thing is sitting off the board. Of course, with standoffs you can get them all straight, so if I do put the neoprene underneath, I kind of have a cushion and I can get everything flat. So let me just do that. Let me get this out. Yeah, I mean I can bend these straighter. I mean you can tell they're all off. So I'm going to cut these in half. Let's see. Let's just do them right over the ground. These are 3 millimeters thick. Gotta have them fully underneath though. Make it look sharper. Let's try this again. I'm gonna push it right down, wiggle it a little bit so it can level on those neoprenes. And it's stiff. So I'll move a little bit. So now I'm going to push it up after one leg's soldered. Relatively straight. Look at that. And actually I'm just going to bend this over to the edge. And she's in there. I'm going to say it again, I think I really prefer the 18 gauge copper compared to the headers. It's a little bit thicker. I can cut them close easier. Because if I go to cut these headers, let's see, they cut, but it's, you're cutting stiff pieces of metal, and it just doesn't feel as good. So can you tell a difference if you're looking right at it? Yeah. So do it either way. I can upload a file that has a 1mm hole instead of 1.2. But you can clearly see, like the copper, when you solder the wire upside down, it's just flat. It's superior. Just go buy some 18 gauge copper.